Welcome back to the another session of Anand Medical Academy. In this session, I am continuing the part of human health and disease. In the last session, we completed parts of health conditions and diseases from the infections, nothing but bacteria, viral, fungal, protozoan and some helminthal. And also we introduced the part of immunity and artificial and natural acquired and innate immunities we had discussed. Finally, antibody structure also we had finished and the types of antibodies. Now in this part I am going to introduce the four important aspects. The number one is vaccination, second one is allergy, third one is autoimmunity and fourth one is immune system in the body. One by one, let us see the topics. First one is vaccination. What is vaccination? It is absolutely a kind of immune system memory or memory of B lymphocytes to recognize and act on antigens second time. This is also called secondary immune response, because this response, their ability to recognize the antigen next time, we can use the vaccines. Suppose a person who infected by a pneumococcal bacteria, the same bacteria can attack, then it's not so pathic situation. It's not so fatal also. Suppose if you in your real time, if you face a new problem, you will be afraid about it, right? Due to the lack of awareness, it arrived in your life very suddenly. But the same problem comes again in the second time in your life, you will never exaggerate to that, because you are already seeing such kind of a problem and its immunities. So the same problem comes third time and fourth time, it will be very common. Just like that, first time when an infection comes to our body, our immune system cells adopt some characteristics, and second time they easily recognize and avoid their pathogenicity. So on the base of this concept, scientists has been identified some vaccines. Exactly, vaccine is active artificial immunization. It is artificial active acquired immunization. This is another way of defining the vaccination. What is vaccination? Vaccination is artificial, vaccination is active, and vaccination is acquired, and that provide immunity to our body. So how we are introducing vaccine? What exactly the vaccine chemically? Vaccine is chemically not a protein or not a carbohydrate, not or any other enzyme. Vaccine is an attenuated or killed microorganism. Attenuated means weakened. If it is very dangerous, we have to make them weak and allow into the body. Then our B lymphocytes who can able to recognize and can produce the antibodies will fight with that attenuated or killed antigens. That is the reason even after the vaccination, kids are getting some symptoms like fever and stomach ache and some kind of pains. Why? Because it is a kind of infection. It is active absolutely. But real pathogen comes in future. That child when become adult, he cannot respond so much. Why? Because already antibodies were developed due to the vaccine. Sometimes some vaccines need boosters after 6 months, after 1 year, or after 5 years. Again, same kind of vaccines can be given. This is what actually the vaccines. Now, vaccines are three types: first generation vaccine, second generation vaccine, third generation vaccine. First generation vaccines are prepared by conventional methods, just like mumps, measles, chickenpox, pox virus, some many bacterial virus. All these viruses vaccines are commonly, and since decades our people are developing. They are called first generation vaccines. They are cheaper in the market also. What about the second generation vaccines? Second generation vaccines are developed or prepared by using genetic engineering methods. Means plasmids, DNA recombination technology. So example, hepatitis B vaccine, HIV vaccine, some dengue vaccine, flu vaccines. All these vaccines are developed by genetic engineering method. When genetic engineering method is used, they are a bit of expensive. So second generation vaccines are expensive. What about the third generation vaccine? Third generation vaccines are under research. Suppose coronavirus. Where is the vaccine? No, it is under research. So that is called third generation vaccine. So many people are bothering about the COVID-19 virus because there is no vaccine. I'll tell you one important and interesting thing. Since decades, not decades, since centuries, we are infecting by the malaria. But do you know when malaria vaccine was developed? In very last year, 2019, October, this malaria vaccine was developed. But people do not aware about it. That's why there is no fear. As everyone knows about the COVID-19 and coronavirus, the entire social media is spreading all the rumors and all. So people are getting fear. But actually, without vaccines also, so many diseases are not pandemic. They have their range of pandemics in the different countries. So this is how the vaccines are developed: first generation, second generation, and third generations. Vaccines are very important in the childhood, not in the adulthood. Why? Because when immunity is low, vaccines can be worked, not in the high conditions. This is what about the vaccination. I hope you understand the first concept. Let us see the second concept, that is allergies. What is allergy? Allergy is also called hypersensitivity. Hypersensitivity, exaggeration response of our immune system is called allergy. Suppose when we meet on new places, when we visit new places, and when we eat some different type of food in other areas, and when we smell a kind of a flowers, we used to sneeze, we used to cough, and we will get some fever like things. Then why these kind of sudden changes are happening? Means some chemicals or some physical agents like radiation, maybe some biological agents just like a pollen grain or sprays prepared by the scents and the flower products, but plant products. All they are unsuitable, or their presence in our body, immune system is acting hyper. That is the reason some reddishness and some sneezing, coughing, fever, these kind of symptoms appear. Generally, such means the chemicals or biological things or physical agents who can cause the allergy are called allergen. Allergen may be physical, chemical, or biological. Physical, such as X-rays, gamma rays, cosmic rays, infrared rays, all these are giving some kind of itching symptom. Whereas chemical, sprays, powders, gels, like biological, pollen grains, some bees, flies. These are examples for biological. So allergen may be a physical or chemical or biological which can cause allergy in our body. During allergy, majorly in the areolar connective tissue, mast cells can be produced, histamine and serotonin, so that in some persons blood pressure will be decreased due to the histamine, some persons blood pressure will be increased according to their body conditions. Why? Mast cells can be influenced very promptly in the allergic reactions. Moreover, during allergic reactions, Eosinophils, nothing but acidophils. They are granulocytic white blood cells. Acidophils number will be increased. Whenever you feel you have an allergy, you just go to the diagnosis to know the number of acidophils. Their number is more than the normal, then you are in the condition of allergy. During allergic conditions, which blood cells number increases, acidophil number increases. They are also called eosinophils, allergy causing things. And another important thing, during allergic conditions, antibody, nothing but antibody type E can be produced. All these are the important thing and information regarding the allergy and hypersensitivity. So this is what? Second one. That we have discussed vaccination and allergies. Third one is autoimmunity. Let us have a look. When we discuss about autoimmunity, the very first thing is, in animal kingdom, higher vertebrates could able to recognize non-self particles from the self particles by a system is called immune system. It says immune system is so specific to identify foreign body particles. Nothing but self and non-self. Recognition is important. So autoimmunity means what? Immune system failed to recognize self from non-self. Which cell is belongs to our body? Which cell is not belongs to our body? Or which cell is a foreign body? That thing is a failed. So our immune system will act on our own body cells because they have failed to identify. Suppose if you have an identity card at the gate of the institute, the watchman will be there. The watchman used to identify or pass entry ticket, whatever. If you have that, he can recognize, yes, you are belongs to a particular institute or a particular state or a particular category. Without institute, how he can allow, even though you are the student of particular institute? No. So he failed to recognize. Like that, some of our immune cells were failed due to genetically or because of some changes happens due to some syndromes and that our own immune cells, mainly B lymphocytes, are failed, or T lymphocytes. B lymphocytes are T lymphocytes are failed to recognize this is our foreign body or this is our body. Suppose if they are failed, then they attack on our own body cells, then result autoimmune disorder. Auto means what? Self immunity. So our self immunity failed, so that our immune cells attacking our own body cells. That is why it is called immune system failed to recognize self from non-self. In such cases, some disorders will come. Example, rheumatoid arthritis. Generally, arthritis comes when the arthritis means what? Inflammation of joints. Over the ages, 45, 50 age, then the joint pains will come here in the elbow or knee and ankle due to the friction. Synovial fluid will be disappear and joint frictions takes place. That's called arthritis. But even though months and infants, months baby or infants, arthritis comes, that is called rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is the result of immune system. Our own immune cells are failed to recognize the joint cells, then they attack and then infect the joint cells, then the function of joint cells gone, then the result friction takes place with the joint cells called rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is autoimmune disorder. Just like some metabolic systems are failed, gout disease, Gall's disease, all these are example of autoimmune disorders. Now the last one is immune system. In our body, entire immune system is run by some glands and lymph nodes and lymph organs and immune cells. Let us see. So glands means generally you will recall that is the exocrine gland, endocrine gland. Yes. apart from that, in the endocrine gland, there was a thymus gland is there. Remember, thymus gland. It is located dorsal to the heart. Its size is increased from birth to puberty. After puberty and during the aging, the size will be decreased, and at the same time, its production is also decreased. The hormone comes from this gland is called thymosin. The thymosin very much need are helpful to production of T lymphocytes. T lymphocytes. T stands thymus. Mainly T helper cells. As after puberty, this size is decreased, the secretions are decreased, T lymphocytes production is also decreased, and that's why after 35 or 40 years, more infections take place. Now next, lymph nodes. Lymph nodes generally called groins and armpits. Armpits, junctions of the hands is called armpits. Junctions of the legs called groins. There some lymph nodes are present. In that, lymph comes and filter all microorganisms, so that blood will be filtered, body fluids are filtered free from the microorganisms. That's why lymph nodes are also very important. Next one is lymph organs. Lymph organs are two types: primary lymph organ and secondary lymph organ. What is primary lymph organ? Listen the definition carefully. Lymph organs, in that lymph immune system cells can be born. So born and mature. The places where immune cells can be born and mature are called primary lymphoid organs. Example, bone marrow, thymus. These are very important organs for the birth and maturity of the B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. Mainly in the bone marrow, B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes will be born. In the thymus, if you see, T lymphocytes can be matured, whereas B lymphocytes can born and mature in bone marrow. T lymphocytes are born in bone marrow but matured in thymus, because thymosin hormone is there. That's why thymus gland is called school of immunity or training center of immunity. Next, what are secondary lymphoid organs? What is the definition of primary lymphoid organs? Organs where immune cells can be born and trained or matured. That's it. There is no work. Means immune cells cannot do any work in the primary organs. Where does they do their work or attack on the foreign particles and all is called secondary lymphoid organs. Secondary lymphoid organs are the parts of immune system where immune cells can act. So, example, spleen, lymph nodes. Spleen is the largest lymph gland. Here, thymus and spleen also comes over there in the gland. Spleen is the largest lymphoid gland. All this. So, primary lymphoid organs, these are secondary lymphoid organs. In the secondary lymphoid organs, some other examples are gut associated lymphoid tissue and mucus associated lymphoid tissue. Next, Peyer's patches. What are Peyer's patches, guys? In the digestive system, internal lining, Kerckering folds, crypts of lubricant, all these are called Peyer's patches. During the absorption, these kind of linings are inhibiting or preventing the entry of microorganisms from food tract to blood or circulatory system. And tonsils also. Tonsils present over here, they are also secondary lymphoid organs. Sometimes we will get the tonsil pains, so that doctors will remove them surgically because they are infected highly by infections. So this is what the difference between primary lymphoid organ and secondary lymphoid organ. One more time, primary lymphoid organ is a place for immune cells birth and immune cells development, not for action. Secondary lymphoid organs are the place where immune cells can act with the microorganisms. That's why they will infect much. The last one, immune cells. Immune cells are two types: phagocytic, non-phagocytic. phagocytic and non-phagocytic. Phagocytic cells are granulocytic phagocytic is there, granulocytic phagocytic cells are there, non-granulocytic phagocytic cells are there. Granulocytic phagocytic cells, example, neutrophils. Neutrophils are also called polymorphonuclear cells, right? Next, non-granulocytic phagocytic cells, example, monocytes. Monocytes are also called NK cells. Natural killer cells are also called macrophages. Macrophages. These names are very important. All these two types of cells are performing phagocytosis by the help of pseudopodia. But whereas non-phagocytic cells are there, see here, this is what phagocytic cells we discussed. Non-phagocytic cells, they cannot perform phagocytosis, but they are involved in defense mechanism. How? They can produce antibodies. Mainly, they are B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. B lymphocytes can produce antibody. T lymphocytes cannot produce antibody, but they can directly attack with the immune cells. Okay, that is why it is called cell mediating immunity, CMI. So T lymphocytes perform cell mediating immunity in that T4 cells, T8 cells, Ts cells. T4 cells means T helper cells. T8 cells means T cytotoxic cells or TC cells. They are also called here in the T4 cells, T8 cells, Ts cells. T4 cells are also called T helper cells. They are very important in the infection of HIV and life. And T8 cells are called cytotoxic cells. They are also called killer cells. See here, natural killer cells, monocytes, killer cells, TC cells. Human immunodeficiency viral infection, that is AIDS. What is exactly the full form of AIDS? Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So today in this class, what I am going to exactly talk about the AIDS. It is worldwide. The first case identified in the 1981. Over 25 million of people are dying over the year ages. Till that, so many people in India and out of India also are being infected by the AIDS. It is also sexual transmitted disease. Some important points and available things about the AIDS I am going to teach you. So, AIDS is caused by retrovirus. Retrovirus. Viruses are many groups: myxovirus, paramyxovirus, retrovirus, flu viruses, so many. COVID-19 is also a retrovirus. In that, genome is RNA. Here also, genome of the virus is RNA. Guys, as of you know very well, viral particles consist of either DNA or RNA. Apart from that, they have a protein code. So, according to the genome, viruses are two types: DNA viruses and RNA viruses. As RNA is the genome of HIV, it is RNA virus, and it is also group of retrovirus. Now, shape of this virus is icosahedral shape, and structure, if you observe the structure of the HIV, just see, it has two single-stranded RNA molecules, and reverse transcriptase enzyme is also attached or associated with the genome, and this structure is covered by a protein coat, and entire this structure is covered by another protein coat, and all this complex structure is covered by a lipid coat. So this is lipid coat and this is protein coat, secondary protein coat. Inside that, primary protein coat is there. So too much of protection, very tough. Then what are these two? This one and this one. These are single standard RNA fragments. Molecules. And along with that, the attached things. This is reverse transcriptase enzyme. Generally, in the molecular basis of inheritance, we have seen that in transcription from the DNA, mRNA has come. For that, transcriptase, RNA transcriptase enzymes are required. But here, RNA becomes DNA. So this is reverse transcription. For that, enzyme is required. It's called reverse transcriptase. We can say this is the weapon of the HIV. With help of this enzyme only, RNA becomes DNA in the host body, means in man. Apart from that, isomerase, first enzyme, second one is reverse transcriptase, third one is polymerase. These three enzymes are also present in HIV virus. Then the first protein code of P is 17, nothing but molecular weight of that protein code is 17, whereas secondary protein code is called P24. So P17 is the primary code, which is around the single stranded RNA, whereas single stranded RNA plus P17 together covered by another code that is called secondary protein code, which is called P24. Now third code is absolutely lipid code. Lipid code consists of glycoprotein membranes or glycoprotein receptors. Glycoprotein receptors or ligands. So what you are observing is a complete structure of HIV. So this is how glycoproteins this is how glycoprotein receptors are present. They are called GP120. Between GP120, other glycoprotein receptors are present. They are shorter than they are called GP41. This is GP means glycoprotein. So here P17 means protein code 17, whereas this is protein code 24. But last surface is not protein code, lipid code. On the lipid code, glycoprotein membranes are present. So this glycoprotein G120 and this is glycoprotein 41. Two types of receptors are present. Entire this structure from here to here, entire this structure is called capsid. So protein code or outer code other than the genome. Virus managed genome is called capsid. The capsid of HIV virus is two tough. It consists of two protein codes and one lipid code. On the lipid code, there was two types of receptors are present. Mainly, these GP120 receptors are very dangerous. They target our T helper cells mainly. Then the T helper cells function will become 0. As T helper cells role is present in both humoral immunity, B lymphocytes providing defense, cell-mediated immunity, T lymphocytes providing immunity, the T helper cells role is very important. But undoubtedly the GP120 receptors are killing the T helper cells. Then B lymphocytes immunity, humoral immunity, T lymphocytes immunity, cell-mediated immunity, cell-mediated immunity, both will collapse. Then ultimately immune system deficiency starts. So most dangerous thing is GP120 in the AIDS virus. So this is the basic data. Let me continue the topic with infection and well, this HIV virus infected to the man. How does they infect? They infected through sexual transmission, nothing but sexual contacts, nothing but the person who is victim of AIDS participated in the sex, then this virus will be transmitted. And also by injections, the persons who are addicted to the drugs, they share the injections from person to person in friend circle. So one person who is the victim of HIV, the same needle will be injected without change, then HIV transmits. Also through placenta from mother to child. These are the ways where infection generally takes place. So this is HIV virus. The structure already you have seen. You imagine that HIV. Once that HIV comes, it has a GP120 receptors. Main receptors are GP120, and inside they have a single stranded RNA as well as 3 enzymes. What are the enzymes present in the HIV virus? Isomerase, reverse transcriptase, and polymerase. Main enzyme is reverse transcriptase. So when they come, first they attack on monocytes, and they also attack on T lymphocytes. But in monocytes, what is going to happen? That is, if this is the monocyte, monocyte is nothing but a type of WBC which do not have a granules, so that it is called agranulocyte. Agranulocytic leukocyte means WBC. As this virus is coming inside, it has a large nucleus which is mango shape, and the genome of our body is DNA, but the genome of virus is RNA. Once this RNA virus, nothing but retrovirus, HIV, infects monocytes, they are also called macrophages. Generally they provide immunity in our body by phagocytosis. So these are RNA virus enters inside that, they release the genome. Entire virus do not enter, only the genome will be released. This is what? RNA. This RNA cannot incorporate with the DNA. Why? Because in RNA, adenine, guanine, uracil and cytosine is present, thymine was absent. Whereas in the DNA, AGTC, adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine is present. As the base sequences of RNA with DNA cannot be compatible, these two cannot, what happens? Cannot incorporate. But RNA is transcribed into DNA in host cells by the help of enzyme is called reverse transcriptase. Reverse transcriptase is also present in this virus that associated with the RNA. That RNA is injected into the macrophages, nothing but monocytes. Inside the monocytes, after infection, the RNA of the HIV virus converts into DNA in host cells by the help of reverse transcriptase enzyme. So DNA to RNA transcription, but RNA to DNA reverse transcription. Reverse transcriptase enzyme do not provided by our cells. It brought along with the genome of RNA. Once DNA is formed, this DNA is incorporated, means adjusted with our monocytes DNA. Means now this is not monocyte. Monocyte is turns into virus. It is also called provirus. This provirus undergo multiplication and produce so many cells. All these cells having DNA, but all this DNA is not have a genetical makeup of human, genetical makeup of RNA. That's why all these are called proviruses. Proviruses are coming from monocytes. These all proviruses again affect to the next fresh monocytes, and the monocytes are becoming proviruses as this viral load increases. Our monocytes, primary defense system monocytes number will be decreases. Then our body become viral factory. So this is the factory, it will become a factory of HIV. So for this, a person required 5 months to 10 years of time. Not so simply, not so next day or next week or next month. So during this stage, a person cannot show the symptoms. That's why it is called asymptomatic period. It is also called incubation period. What is incubation? Incubation is a period or a duration between infection and symptom. Until unless a person shows some symptoms, entire the infection stage is developing, pathogenicity occur, that is called incubation. What is the incubation period of HIV? 5 months to 10 years. Sometimes maybe 1 year or 2 year or 3 year, according to our immune capacity, it exists. But once a person is infected by HIV, not very next month, he can be a positive. In this stage, this person is not showing any symptom. It is an asymptomatic period. On the other hand, T lymphocytes were there. T lymphocytes having MHC2 receptors means major histocompatibility. Major histocompatibility. These are the type of receptors. They help us to recognize foreign bodies. But this GP120 receptor directly attacks the MHC2 receptors of the T helper cells. They are also called CD4 cells or T4 cells. CD means cluster differentiating molecule. They are T4 cells. So T4 cells are having very important receptors are called major histocompatibility type 2. So the dangerous thing is GP120 goes and eradicate all the MHC. They damage the MHC. Now T helper cells without MHC2 cannot do anything. Just like a gun without a bullet. Understand? So the T helper cells cannot recognize foreign bodies. So many foreign bodies will come, but T helper cells cannot recognize. Humoral immunity will be failed, means many bacterial infections comes, and cell-mediating immunity is also failed. Many viral infections are also, T lymphocytes are also failed. So many viral infections also. So the body, a particular body where these changes occurred, the body welcomes all the bacterial, viral, fungal, protozoan infections. So one by one, all diseases comes and the person's immunity slowly, gradually decrease. Then a person acquired diseases. Acquired means what? Adopt one after one, one after one. Diseases will come and will not go. If a person get one disease, he will have one symptom. The person is getting all types of diseases, he will get a group of symptoms. The group of symptoms is called syndrome. So listen carefully. The victim is acquiring diseases. In the victim, disease is nothing but immunity of the person is slowly, gradually decreasing, and group of symptoms are occurring. Nothing but syndrome. That is the reason this disease is called acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Acquired means what? Adopting all diseases. Immuno means what? Immune system. Deficiency means what? Decreasing. Then syndrome means what? Syndrome means not one disease. All diseases means many symptoms, group of symptoms. So AIDS means acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Once a person detected he is a positive by symptoms, what kind of symptoms? Continue fever, coughing, weight loss, dramatically weight loss, and continuously dehydration of the body and motions. So severeness and headache, stomachache, so many physiological changes takes place in that body. Then that person is very near to the death. It is a fact. This disease can be spread from that person to other person through injections. If there is no proper syringes were used, use and through syringes should be used. One syringe should not be shared from person to other person. Number two, why it is called sexually transmitted disease? This virus can also sustain in the fluid of a semen. In our body fluids also this is present, exists. So without condom or without any barrier methods, intercourse, sex happen, then from one partner another partner, this virus can easily transmit. So it is called sexually transmitted disease. Not generally by intercourse this disease is coming. This disease can transmit through unprotected sexes, not by direct or regular protected sexes. So many measures will be there to avoid this kind of the disease is developing in our body. Now let us see how it can be diagnosed and how it can be treated. If you see a diagnosis of this disease, generally antigen testing will be there. Next, ELISA will be there. In biotechnology principles and applications, we see that enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. ELISA means what? Enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. ELISA. ELISA or ELISA. SN is for test. And Southern blotting technique. Blotting technique is also helps. Western blotting technique to identify the viral load. So PCR, polymerase chain reaction, how much virus is present in. If virus is present or not, all these are okay. But how much virus is present, to check the viral load, the PCR will be used. At the time of PCR application, I said, I hope you remember. And once diagnosis happened, what is the treatment? Generally, treatment is not there. Vaccines are under development, so that third generation vaccines are going over here. Third generation vaccines are going over here. Some in early stage the treatment will be there by azidothymidine. Azidothymidine, simply called AGT. If AGT injections will be given to the pregnant woman who suspected or who diagnosed as an AIDS patient or HIV person, then to avoid the infection of the pregnant, early stages if we give to the AGT, then through the placenta this transmission can be prevented. Cancer is non-infectious. Non-infectious means non-transmittable. Non-transmittable. Understand? Secondly, which caused by failed cell cycle. This is a very important. In first year you already learned. Cancer can occur in any age. Don't think that 50 above age people only get cancer. No. Being an embryo in the pregnancy time also may get cancer. So before birth also we can get cancer. How? Because some of the genes. So cancer is also caused by genes. Causing agents of cancer is called carcinogen. Carcinogen. So gen means what? It creates. What it creates? Cancer. So that carcinogen. Study about cancer is called carcinology. Another name also there for the agent who cause cancer is oncogen. Oncogen. Oncology. Study about cancer. Oncogen, who is the reason for cancer. Right? Now, types of cancer. Types of cancer. Mainly, there was 3 types of cancers are there. Carcinoma, sarcoma, leukemia. These are the 3 types of that. Everything we will discuss in detail. Now, can cancer detect? Yes. By diagnostic methods. What are they? All these we will discuss in depth. What is cancer? How it will cause? What are the cancer properties? How does cancer give some symptoms to diagnose that disease, deadly disease in early stage? Once we detect, what kind of precautions we have to take, the proper lifestyles. Let us see in depth. First of all, I would like to tell you how cancer arises in our body. Suppose if it is an epithelial tissue, example, I am taking many places cancer may occur. I am taking here an epithelial. This epithelial tissue, for our assumption, we just calculate how many number of cells are there in a particular tissue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 13 cells are there. All these 13 cells are together doing a function To do this function, they need oxygen, they need supplement, nothing but nourishment. So, food. And also some hormones, enzymes, hormones, so many required. So, this is a proper function. Then, after some time, nothing but days or weeks or months or years, a particular cell will die and that cell will replace. So generally, normal cell have a capacity to work, and after work it has to be died to replace itself. That property is called apoptosis. What is apoptosis? Cell programmed death. Cell programmed death. Suppose if you take an RBC, one RBC lifespan is 100 to 120 days. In 100 to 120 days, it has to work to transport the carbon dioxide and oxygen and also maintain a lot of functions. After 120 days, it has to be died. So that another one will come in that place. That is naturally programmed. Some cells like WBC, if you take 10 to 13 days. So every cell have their own program to work and die. Why have to replace? So that is called cell programmed death. Telling you very clearly, cell programmed death is a very common character of any cell of our body, except neurons. Neurons, once they die, they cannot regenerate. But every cell have a power of regeneration. That is called apoptosis. Apoptosis means in cell death, and later it will be replaced by cell division. That is what called cell division capacity. How the cell will division? For suppose in these 13, the two cells are died under the apoptosis, then X function comes down. But it shouldn't happen in our body because the cell, the nearest cell will divide and replace these two. How one cell undergone divide and gives two cells? By mitosis. Understand? In mitosis, there was two steps are there. One is interphase and M phase. We just recall the knowledge of cell cycle. Okay, in interphase, G1, S and G2. Later it continued as M phase. In M phase, prophase, anaphase, metaphase, telophase, cytokinesis will be there. So, result, two cells. If a cell undergone interphase, then G1S, G2 takes place. In that nucleic material will be double and mainly DNA replication takes place in S phase. Further enzymes are required everything in G1. Later, undergone the P, prophase, anaphase, metaphase, telophase and cytokinesis provide two daughter cells so that they too will be replaced. What I am saying, everything is a normal person phenomenon, not cancer. I am not yet introduced how cancer takes place here. This is how a normal tissue is performing its function. If it is a alveolar, the function is exchange of gases. If it is the nephron, filtering of the blood. If it is the neuron, this is impulse conduction, and so this is how the normal function is going on. Normal. If a carcinogen comes, what is carcinogen? In the introduction part, I told you carcinogen is an agent, but agent may be chemical. So chemicals like benzene, polyethanol, tetraphenone, so many carcinogens are there in the world. So 50% of cosmetics used by girls are cosmetics, carcinogens. The water bottle, pet-free bottle are not. Pet bottles, PET, polyethylene tetraphenone, that is also cancer. Tobacco, cigarette, smoking, that is also carcinogenic agents. So many organic solutions are carcinogenic agents. Nail polishes are carcinogenic agents. So many powders, detergents, everything. We are in the chemical world. So many carcinogenic agents are there in our life around us. So, mostly chemical, if not physical. How come the physical agent as a carcinogen? So, X-ray, infrared ray, they cause so many mutations in our gene sequences. The result, cell cycle fail. So that is also act as a, or else biological. Biological means what? Some viruses, by the help of their enzymes and genomes, they disturb our gene sequences. Such viruses are called oncovirus. So many viruses are there, but oncoviruses can cause cancer. Clear? So, a carcinogen or oncogen, both are same, may be chemical or physical or biological. Once any of the three that act as a carcinogen comes and disturb two important mechanisms, then the result is cancer. What is the first one? The first one is cell communication. Cell communication. Suppose if this is the cell A, this is the B, this is the C, and this is the D. So many cells are there. First, let us take the example for A, B, C. What actually inside the metabolic activities are taken place in the A, B, and C, and this D, and this E, and this F comes to know. That is a cell signaling process that comes in the MBBS cells. But now you just listen, cell and their signaling process. So, because of this carcinogen agent existing in the particular tissue, the cell A lose getting communication from the nearest cells. This is the first phase of the cancer. What I said, cell A is under the influence of the oncogen, maybe anything. So suppose a person is having a habit of smoking, is a chain smoker. Every day he is smoking about one packet of cigarette. Then couple of years after, the tobacco acts as a carcinogen in his body. That tobacco disturbs the communication of a particular cell. Means the particular cell A lost communication from the neighbor cells. Means what is happening inside the A, B, D, C, F, and E doesn't. Then loss of communication. So cell communication will be lost or gone. Then second thing is P53 gene fail to work. What is P53 gene? I will tell you. Let me take this cell A, little bigger. In that nucleus is there. Inside the nucleus there was a genetic material. This genetic material is nothing but DNA base. So in the DNA so many sequences are there, but some sequences that are made up of some that can generate a mRNA by transcription, and a later translation one protein will come. The molecular weight is 53, so that 53 Daltons, so that gene is called P53 gene. If it is P53 gene, then this gene gives a protein by transcription and translation. This protein can regulate cell cycle. Remember, I repeat. Under the influence of a carcinogen, a particular cell in the tissue lost its communication with its neighbor cells. Later, after some days or few weeks, what will happen? In the same cell, inside the nucleus, some changes takes place. What kind of changes? In the DNA, so many sequences are there. In that, a particular sequences are responsible to transcribe and translate, produce a protein. That protein work is regulating the cell cycle. How it can regulate the cell cycle? Means, suppose if we fall or any injury happens, suppose here an injury happened, here some 100 cells were gone. Then this p53 gene in a particular region cells will come to know and start the division. So it fills that only 100 cells, not 101. So from this part, both the ends, it will be clear, not extra part. Then it will be cured. Means if 100 cells gone, p53 gene will open the cell cycle to multiply the cells till 100 only, not 101 or 100 or 200 or 300. Clear? So then after what will happen? This p53 gene will stop the cell cycle. If cell cycle opens, cell division takes place. If cell cycle stop, there is no cell division. Unnecessarily in our body, cell division doesn't occur. If occurs, that is cancer. So, a cell in the early stage, it lost communication with the other neighbor cells in the first phase. Later on, as its impact is much more in a particular cell, then in that cell, p53 gene will be eradicated. So, p53 gene was lost. Whenever the p53 gene was lost, a particular protein cannot be produced by the central dogma of molecular biology. That is transcription translation. If that protein is not there, then who will regulate cell cycle? Means cell division should occur, or in particular time cell division should stop. Like who will be monitored? No one will be monitored. If no one will be monitored, if the cell undergone the division, then it multiply just like anything. Instead of 2, it will give 2000 cells. Instead of 4, it will give 4000 cells. Why? Cell cycle was open, but it was not closed. Who's the responsible one to close the cell cycle? p53 gene. That gene was not there. The gene was not there means that protein was not produced. If the protein was not produced means this extra mass will be produced due to unstoppable division. Then this is called neoplasm. This is called neoplasm. Instead of 13 cells, very happily the 13 cells are doing a function is X. To do that function, all these 13 cells are taking food, energy and oxygen by very normal metabolic activities. Now, if all these oxygen, food and enzyme hormones are coming, instead of these 13 cells, these 13,000 cells will consume that. Original cells who can perform the function cannot get the food, cannot get the oxygen, cannot get the hormones and other metabolites. Then the function X will be gone. Why? Instead of that, they are eating, they are consuming, but they are not functional. Cancer cells are not functional. Cancer cells function is only division, not work. Means they are always in interface. They are always in the division. They cannot come out of the genome. G1 S G2 again G1 S G2. If they want to perform the function, they must comes out of the G1 into the G0. So question phase, then they have to perform. But cancer cells are failed in the function. They are always division. Then extra mass will come. That is called neoplasm. New plasm substance. So new substance can be formed. Once new substance is formed in a particular tissue, what will happen? General consumption will be disturbed. General function will be disturbed. So abnormal functions starts. In case if you observe all these extra growth, then this is called tumor. This is called tumor. Tumors are two types. If this tumor is malignant, then it can spread. It has a capacity of spread from one location to another location. They can shift. If it is benign tumor, then they cannot spread. They stick to a particular locality, so that they are called local tumors. Benign tumors are contrast to the malignancy. I repeat, this is how the new tissue growth happen. That is called a tumor. Tumors are two types. If it is a benign tumor, it is growing only in a particular place so that we can cut and remove after some diagnosis techniques and all. Then it will not be back. Clear? If it is the malignity tumor, if we cut, again it will come. Repeatedly they will come. Why? Because the growth, unlimited cell division takes place. That's the reason. And malignancy tumors have another special character that is called metastasis. Very, very important. What is that? Metastasis. Metastasis is a characteristic feature of cancer cells. What? Spread from one place to another place. There also they influence other cells, and suppose the blood cancer is there, they shift to brain, brain tumors will form. Brain too, they comes to the epithelial tissue, carcinoma, sarcoma. One place to another place they will go. That's why in the advanced stage of cancer, they shift in many places, the functions will be disturbed and person undergone final stage and will die. This is simply cancer. So, what is the property of cancer? Metastasis. Then what is not the property of cancer? Apoptosis. Apoptosis is the property of normal cell. Cancer cells do not have a death. So that cancer cells cannot go under apoptosis. Cancer cells undergone metastasis and they spread the things from one place to another place. These cancer cells releases interferons in case carcinogen is virus. In before classes I told you viral infected cells releasing chemicals are called interferons. So if these cells are infected by virus and also undergone the cancer, they release some chemicals that is called interferons. By alpha interferons, we can treat the cancer. Cancer can be treated by allopathy, homeopathy, nature cures, as well as immunotherapy is also there for cancer. First of all, what I am going to conclude here is, this is how cancer occurs in our body. I repeat in very quick manner. In a normal tissue, a particular cell undergone the influence of a carcinogen. The carcinogen may be chemical or physical or biological. What will happen? First, caderins will be gone out. Caderins means they are receptors that communicate one cell with its neighbor cells. Those receptors gone off, then the particular cell lost its communication. Then future, the same cell undergone loss of p53. Then what will happen? Cell cycle and regulation will be failed. Once a cell lost its capacity of division and control of division, then it will be unlimitedly grow. So they form an excess tissue part that is called neoplasm. Neoplasm is a character of a tumor as well as cancers also. If it is a tumor, then we can predict it is a benign tumors. Benign tumors are localized tumors. They will grow and they never spread, they never harm. Whereas if the tumor is malignant tumor, there is no doubt that is a cancer that spreads from one place to another place, that is simply invade our body. Now, this kind of cancers have a characteristic called metastasis. They never die in our body. Fine. Now, how we have to detect this cancer? There is a technique. So many techniques, diagnostic techniques are there in the medical field. X-ray, MRI scan, CT scan, EMRI scan, electromagnetic resonance imaging, and so many techniques are there. But peculiarly for cancer, apart from all this, there was a technique is called biopsy. What is that? Biopsy. Biopsy is a diagnostic method in which chemical nature of the particular tissue which was collected from as a sample, they will observe, and they observe all these stages. Then they conclude as it was cancer, or it was benign, or it was malignancy, or it was carcinoma, just like that. So technique used to diagnose the cancer is biopsy, biochemical test. After biopsy, they will observe the symptoms, a couple of sittings with the patient. Then they will start the treatment. Treatment may be chemotherapy, allopathy. In the early stage, it will be allopathy. By allopathy, it will be cured by medicines. Otherwise, a couple of times chemotherapy. In that radiation, it will give some other side effects, skin allergies and hair fall and all. And by alpha interferons also will be treated. That is called immunotherapy. So some nature cure centers, cancer have a very natural treatments. So many. What we need first of all, awareness. So this is how the cancers can be treated. If the cancer comes for epithelial tissue, then that is called carcinoma. Carcinoma. If the same thing happened for connective tissue, that is called sarcoma. If the same thing happened for the blood, that is called leukemia. According to the region, name will be prefixed. So, a carcinoma means epithelial lining. If epithelial lining of the testis or mammary glands or prostate glands like stomach or gastric, so many epithelial linings are there in our body. If in that region this kind of phenomenon takes place, that is cancer. Just like tell me some urinary bladder, that is also epithelium, gastric wall, and the intestinal cancers. Okay, gastric cancers, next gonadal cancers, prostate cancers, breast cancers. All these belongs to carcinoma. Why? Carcinoma means a cancer happens for epithelial lining. If a cancer happens for connective tissue means what? Nothing but a bone, cartilage, areolar connective tissue. In this happens just like the bone happened, that is osteoma. For lymph happened, lymphoma. For cartilage happened, chondroma. Oma will be fixed end of the particular region. That is how, if for example, brain comes neuroma, glial cells comes glioma, and blood, particularly white blood cells comes leukemia. This is how the terms will be given. Then what kind of a treatment means? Treatments of 4 types: allopathy, homeopathy, and natural therapy, and alpha interferons are also can be given for this. So cancer is a very common thing. It occurs by our lifestyle. If you have a proper lifestyle, proper diet, and conscious on your health, definitely you can overcome even you are affected by the cancer. But practically, sometimes cancer is hereditary. Means from our parents to the next generations, this cancer can go. Why? If anything disturbs this sequence, if this sequence is missed, automatically cancer comes. No need of any carcinogen. If suppose one protein should be required, means the protein should come from mRNA. mRNA should come from DNA. If the DNA sequence is missed by any genetical abnormalities, then cancer comes. Concentrate on the different types of drugs. In our NCERT syllabus, there were mentioned very important 4 types of drugs. Number 1, opioids. Number 2, cannabinoids. Number 3, coca alkaloids. Number 4, alkaloids. All these 4 are different categories. In each, some other chemicals were included. If you focus first, source means where does this opioids or cannabinoids or coca alkaloids or alkaloids can be collected or gathered for the preparations. So if you see the source of opioids, that is Papaver somniferum. Papaver somniferum is a plant commonly called poppy plant. From that latex, these kind of opioids will be prepared. What are the drugs included in the opioids is the point. That is mainly morphine. This morphine is a sedative, painkiller. When injuries or accidents or some kind of surgeries taken place, to bear the pains, the morphine will be suggested by the doctors. So don't think that the drug means in the different perception. Drug means a chemical, physically, physiologically and psychologically, which helps our body. Sometimes it acts as a depressant, sometimes it acts as a stimulant. So in that category we have to discuss. Morphine is a main drug. If that morphine is acetyl, nothing but diacetylation. Diacetylation of the morphine becomes heroin. Heroin is another form of drug which is a white color, odorless and crystalline in structure, that commonly called smack. So the smack or heroin both are same, which is derived from morphine. It is the main drug. If it is acetylation of the morphine, diacetylation, two acetyl groups will be added in the structure. In the NCERT book, they have given the structure, you can observe. So morphine and heroin, these two are drugs under the category of opioids. Clear? How these drugs will be abused means mode of use: snorting and injections. Sometimes intravenously injections will be taken up, and sometimes snorting. Snorting means crystalline things will be inhaled. Smoking is different, snorting is different. Now, so either snorting or injection, these kind of drugs will be abused, consumed. Then what are the parts in our body affected? Means gastrointestinal tract, digestive system, central nervous system, brain. These will be affected. Why? Because these two organ or tissue surfaces have opioid receptors. As they have opioid receptors, when a person consumed these drugs, they will directly go to gastrointestinal tract and central nervous system and bind to the opioid receptors. So that receptors functions will be constant. As they are engaged in the receptors, original function of the receptor will be completely down. Now, they are under the depressant. They helps to slow down the body functions. Clear? So this is why the morphine acts as a sedative. During medication, when a person is under the using of tablets after injury, after surgery, the morphine is also added so that body function will be slow. In the rest, it will be cured. So this is the first category. What is the first category? First category of medicine? Opioids. Opioids are sedatives. Opioids are depressants. They help to slow down the body functions. Opioids are gathered or collected from Poppyworth somnifera, simply called poppy plant. And which part of the plant? Latex. Then what are the drugs under the opioid? One is morphine, second one is heroin. Heroin is also called smack. This heroin is extracted from morphine by diacetylation. Next, what are the ways they are consuming the opioids? One is snorting through inhalation of the crystalline structure through nose, and second one is injection. Injection means what? Intravenously they are giving by syringe. So these are the affected parts by the opioids. This is the structure. This is the format. I am going to introduce for other three so that you will have a good comparisons and as well as differences. Now, flower tops, leaves, resins are the parts of some plants where cannabinoids are extracted. Second category of drugs. Cannabinoids are extracted from flower tops, leaves and resins. They are from ganja, marijuana, hashish, charas are the drugs they are made from. What are the drugs? Under the cannabinoids, ganja, marijuana, hashish, charas. These are stimulants. They boost up our physiological functions. By inhalation, inhalation means nothing but snorting, and ingestion. Ingestion means what? Here chewing, not injection. This is injection and this is ingestion. Ingestion means what? Oral administration. Mainly cardiovascular system, heart, and nervous system, mainly brain. These two are effective parts. Why? Because these two have cannabinoid receptors. As opioid receptors are binded by the opioid drugs, cannabinoid receptors present in the cardiovascular system and the brain. These are effective and decrease their function, original function, so that person will be physiologically affected. They act as a stimulant. Recap the cannabinoids. Cannabinoids, nothing but ganja, marijuana, hashish and charas like drugs are consumed by the person by inhalation and ingestion. In that person, central nervous system, nothing but brain, cardiovascular system, nothing but heart will be highly affected due to the receptors present like cannabinoid receptors. So they act as stimulants. This is the story of cannabinoids. Let us move to the third type of drug, that is coca alkaloids. Coca alkaloids are extracted from erythroxylum of the plant, and cocaine is the main drug. It is also called as coke or crack. Both are same, but this is smack. Smack is different. Coke or crack was different. Both are same. Now, snutting is the mode of abuse. Snutting means what? Crystalline powder inhaled by nose. Central nervous system affected, and these drugs act as a hallucinogen. Hallucinogen means what? By consuming this drug, person goes to euphoria. What was that? Euphoria means what? Extreme happiness feeling. He feels like that he was in the heaven. So he will imagine everything, even whether it's present or not. It is called hallucination. So it acts as a hallucinogen. After the drug impact, when the person comes to the normality, the person will realize that I was there in the Mumbai. So he was not there anywhere. He was there in his home only. But he is hallucinating like that. He is imagining like that because of presence of that drug. That's why it acts as a hallucinogen. Even that is a stimulant. So it gives the highly happiness feeling that is called euphoria. Euphoria is the peak of happiness feeling by the presence of drug in the body. That is why the persons who are under the stress, who are under the problems of economical or personal, okay, they need some relief. That's why they are taking these drugs and addicted to the euphoria, so that they are also addicted for the same happiness every time. So they are taking drugs very gradually. Finally, they are addicted to the drugs and lose their lives. Now, the last category is alkaloids. Alkaloids are extracted from the leaves of tobacco plants. From the tobacco plants, many chemicals can be made up. The main thing is nicotine. Clear? So the nicotine is also a stimulant, just like leaves, like tea leaves, just like a coffee seeds. They are also drugs. When we feel headache, we are taking some cup of tea, so that we are simply they're stimulated and simply we are relaxed. So a drug is giving a little kind of change in our physiological and psychological things. So how this nicotine binds the receptors of the lungs, mainly causes lungs infection, bronchitis, emphysema. Emphysema means you are continuously coughing without break. That is called smoker's cough. That is emphysema. So lungs are affected. That's called emphysema. Bronchitis, inflammation of bronchioles takes place, so that person cannot take much oxygen, and hemoglobin binding capacity to the oxygen and carbon dioxide also comes down, so that person cannot use carbon dioxide much. Then carbon monoxide will be built inside the body. So gastric ulcer takes place in body because of the alkaloids. Alkaloids have giving more impact in all the systems like circulatory system, respiratory system, and also nervous system. So over the addiction of alkaloids, persons lose memory also. So these are the 4 drugs in front of you to understand their sources, where they are collected from, what kind of drugs they are producing, how they are abusing, and what are the parts in an addicted person affecting those on, as well as what kind of category, whether that's stimulants or depressants or hallucinogens. So this table helps you a lot to understand all the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 aspects of 4 drugs. So 4 into 5, 20 points will be there directly. You can grab. Other than this, some hallucinogens, barbiturates, amphetamines, and some drugs extracted from datura plants are also there. They are also act as hallucinogens. Once you go through the textbook lines, you can understand different other drugs also. So these all are natural drugs. Some synthetic drugs also can be made by laboratory experiments. Apart from all these, another concept is there, that is called alcoholism. If we talk about the alcoholism, generally you have an idea, alcohol, that is nothing but ethyl alcohol. In the beverages, by the fermentation, in the microbes and human welfare we discussed, so many products will be made like beer, whiskey, rum, gin, and brandy. Like Many also traditional drink is there, toddy. All these have ethyl alcohol because of the anaerobic respiration. So the quantity of ethyl alcohol in that particular drinks and consumption of the such a kind of drink by a person affect mainly in the liver. So liver cirrhosis, fatty liver, jaundice, as well as the loss of memory power, loss of eyesight, and other abnormalities like weight loss, what called different metabolic activities comes down. All the body parts gradually affected person will